watching it right on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, everyone. I am Carmen DeBono, and welcome to Il MALTIN TAGHNA, presented by the Maltese Center of New York. Our guest today is member Anita Volpe, who began her path into healthcare in Malta more than 30 years ago. Today, she is Vice President and Administrator of a community hospital located in New York State. Apart from this very important role, she mentors, lectures, and teaches nursing students among the variety of interests and qualifications she holds. Recently, Anita earned her Doctorate of Nursing Practice, which is also known as a DNP. Congratulations, Anita.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. So your early beginnings were in Gozo, and you began your studies and career in nursing in Malta, correct?
Correct, yes. Thank you, Carmen. Good afternoon, everyone. So so I started in those days, we started nursing school when we were 16. We graduated high school at the age of 16. And I became a nurse. I was a full-fledged nurse at the very young age of 19. So the interesting thing about my start of my career is that I had no inclination of being a nurse whatsoever. I was skeeved out about everything, didn't want to touch anything or anybody. So when I was 16, my mom said, you know, you have to go and take typing classes during the summer because you're never going to amount to anything and you're either going to be a secretary or a factory worker. So here I go with my typewriter every day from Kirchham, Gozo to Victoria, in the heat of the summer, carrying my typewriter and taking classes. And I hated it. And I really hated that. So went to the library on the way one time and I picked up a book, and the book was called One Pair of Feet by Monica Dickens. And I started reading, and I still am an avid reader. And I opened this book, and this book is about a young lady. She was, I believe, about 20 in World War II in England. And she was trying to find herself. She was pretty affluent, and she wanted to do her bit for the war effort. And she looked at various things she could do. She said, you know, I'm looking at ads in the newspapers, and they're looking for help for this and for that. And what could I do? She said, well, I can't go in the army because my hips won't fit into the skirt. I don't want to be a bus conductor. I don't want to be in the kitchens. And then she said, oh, they need nurses. So you know, it's always every girl's dream to be a nurse and to be helpful, and let me be a nurse. So she recounts her story of being a nurse, and I fell in love with the concept of being a nurse. And then, of course, I told my mom, and she was like, oh my goodness, you know what it entails to become a nurse? But I was adamant about it, and I applied, and here we are, 30 plus years later, I am a nurse.
So did you think, like, when you heard about nursing, that was going to bring you to this path that you're in now when you first read that book?
I wanted to experience everything this lady was experiencing. So, you know, the bedpan falling on the floor in the middle of the night, waking up all the patients, and now everybody wants a bedpan. Yeah, that happened to me. In those days, we had stainless steel bedpans instead of like what we have now. So you tiptoed into the ward, and that was in Malta. And if somebody wants a bedpan, you tiptoed very quietly and made sure you didn't make a noise, because if you did, then everybody woke up, and now everybody wants to go to the bathroom, and here we go. So I could relate to what you went through, because we had kind of the same setup. So we had, like, you know, things that when you talk to a nurse these days, they have no concept of. You know, we used to cook for patients. In the morning, you know, as a student nurse, we had to make breakfast. So breakfast didn't come, we had to make it. We had to have a big cauldron of water. Then we had a huge gauze, we put the tea leaves in there, and we made tea. Then we had hard-boiled eggs, and we had to make dozens of hard-boiled eggs. And then we, of course, had to butter all the bread with the bread to make them sandwiches for their morning breakfast. So we got the breakfast trolley out and fed everybody, gave them their breakfast, and whoever couldn't eat, then we fed them or gave them their tea. Then the nurse, as a student nurse, right, that's what we did. Then we had to pick up the dishes, and then we had to wash them, count the silverware, put them away, this and that. So things back then were a lot different than they are now, and even in present day Malta, obviously.
Wow. So basically you're like a busboy and a nurse at the same time.
We did a lot of things. So we even made dressings. So I remember when I had my rotation in the operating room, we made the dressings that they used. So, and then we sterilized them. So it was pretty interesting. So you had like, you stretch out big rolls of gauze, then you had the cotton wool you put in the middle, then you roll it, then you cut it, and then you can get like a little suture and just so that they don't unravel. And then we put them in the autoclave. In the autoclave, they steam heat them and sterilize them by the pressure that they create. So yeah, so it's totally different. It's just totally different.
So
it teaches you a lot.
How long were you a nurse in Malta before you came to New York City?
So my diploma program was three years and 3 months, and we rotated. So it's not, our classroom was devoted to the first 3 months. Then we worked like once a week. We worked on the floors. You got assigned where to go. And then we had, for the next 3 years, we were in class once a week and on the floors. So we had a very good clinical experience. Then I was in critical care in Malta in a general ICU for 5 years. And then I came to the United States after that.
And what was the biggest impression you had when you came to New York City? How did you do the transition? I mean, were you already prepared to enter nursing here, or did you have to kind of, set up things so you can enter nursing here?
Yeah, so it was different. So obviously in Malta, the didactic followed the British program. So including the pharmacological aspect of nursing, right? So for example, like a simple Panadol, we don't have it in the United States. We have Tylenol instead. Until I came to the United States, I didn't know what a Tylenol was, obviously. So that impacted my approach, because obviously the pharmacological aspect was, I had to relearn some of the medications. They're not the same. So when I came to the United States, I had to apply to pass my boards, because the assumption was that I'm an RN and I can pass my boards, but I also had to pass the foreign graduate boards as well. So the boards are really hard. And I remember studying, because where in Malta, the exams where it's very different. Over here, it's multiple choice. Over in Malta, it's an essay. So for example, you have to talk about heart failure, right? So you have to write a whole essay on how to identify heart failure, how to diagnose it, how to treat it, blah, blah, blah. So all that stuff. And you don't know what's going to come out in the exam. So you have 3 questions, but you may be writing for hours, or an hour and a half, actually, on whatever it is that comes out. The American version is a lot different, because you can have like probably 200 to 150 questions on every single thing, and it's multiple choice, and you have 2 of them are very, very close. Mm-hmm. So that kind of exam structure was very different for me. And I remember studying for hours upon end to get that kind of concept in my head. So two boards I had to take, which are very similar, one for foreign graduates and one for the RN boards.
So you're saying the foreign board was harder than the the state board?
They were very equivalent. They were very similar questions, very, very similar structure.
I see.
And if English was not my second language and I had to fight that, I would also have had to take what's called a TOEFL, which is the exams for people whose native language is not English. But
so what happened after you passed your boards? What was the next step you had to do to, begin practicing here as a nurse?
I did start practicing before I got my boards. So I was hired. I remember I was working in a hospital in New York City. So I had applied to work in a hospital, and I was hired to work with the understanding that I will pass my boards. If I didn't, I would not have been able to keep my employment. I was what was called back then a graduate nurse. So at that time, and once I passed my boards, then I became a full-fledged RN, and then it was not a business as usual for me as far as it was concerned.
And what was your focus in nursing when you were here?
So I fell in love with nursing, as the book started me on this journey, and I kind of kept falling into my careers. So I felt like it was not such an active change all the time. So because of how I placed in my final exam, they assigned me to work in ICU, which I didn't really want to work in ICU in Malta. It was a general ICU. We did open heart surgery, we had burn care, we did everything. And I was asked to work there, and I fell in love with it so much that I kept trying to get books in Malta. At that time, there weren't medical books that you can buy. So wherever anybody came to the States or England, I asked them to bring back books for me so that I can read up on what I was doing. And that's what really gave me the passion that I have now, for the passion for learning, because I found that I could really make a difference. I could use my head and say, okay, so this is what the patients are going through, and this is what I need to prevent from them deteriorating. So it was using a lot of clinical knowledge that I didn't realize that a nurse at that time needed to have. And when I came to the United States, I was hired to work in a medical ICU. Again, fell in love with the clinical work that I was doing. So then I said, okay, so I wanted to attain national certification in my area of specialty. And that's when I set for an exam and became certified in critical care. Again, I felt like I had a hunger for learning. And then I enrolled in NYU for my bachelor's degree in nursing. And that took me about five years to complete, because I had to start from scratch.
Wow. I never realized all the levels of education involved with nursing. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around your steps to what you just, said with NYU. I assumed you didn't need a bachelor of nursing, that you passed your boards and you did what you did. And, it kind of just happened.
Yeah, it's far from the truth. I felt like I had to fight for everything. So when I applied for NYU, right? So I had no idea what a semester was, what a quarter was, what a credit was. I had no idea, right? So I applied for NYU thinking, okay, it's the only college that I applied. I don't know why. I said, okay, that's what I wanted to apply. So I got in, and I didn't think anything of it. And people were like, oh, congratulations, you got into NYU. I was like, why are they congratulating me? I applied and I got in. One of the things, you had to have an entrance exam, not an entrance exam, you had to have an essay that you have to write. And I remember writing about the first time that I saw the Statue of Liberty when I was coming to New York. And I think that's what got me in, to tell you the truth. So here I am. I am on vacation somewhere. I missed the first couple of weeks of school because I had booked my September vacation, and I didn't think anything of it. Come back and I find that I was enrolled for 16 credits. And I don't know what 16 credits are. They told me I'm enrolled in chemistry, biology, English, and another like an entrance kind of like a first semester thing. And I was talking to some people from work, and they're like, you're a superintendent, you're working full-time nights, and you're doing school full-time. You're like, are you kidding me? You're not going to be able to do this. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. It's okay. And of course, I started going to school, and biology had obviously they had, you know, the lab, and you had, like, for biology, you had the lecture, you had the lab, and you had a recitation. So I was in school full time every day, and I was working 3 12-hour shifts at night, and I was a superintendent of a 60+ apartment building in Astoria, which, you know, people were like, you know, I'm up all night because UPS is delivering, or Con Edison is coming for whatever. So it was like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And they're like, well, you didn't even meet with your advisor, and they had just assigned your classes. So I didn't. So again, I had nobody to mentor me and say, listen, this is what you need to do. You start small, you figure. So anyway, I had to drop out of a couple of classes just to keep my sanity. So yeah, it's very, very different. And I learned everything mostly by trial and error. Nobody sat down with me and said, okay, this is what you need to do, and this is what you definitely can't do.
Right, so that puts you in a great position to be here and mentor, because of all the challenges you went through from coming from Malta, coming here, and doing the different roles you did to achieve your bachelor in nursing at NYU while working and helping in a building as a superintendent, which many of us can relate to. You know, it was a way to, you know, be able to live in New York and
Correct, yep.
And establish and, you know, get our footing. So once you got your Bachelor of Nursing in NYU, what did that enable you to do in your next step?
So again, one thing that I had wanted to do is get the education. I wanted to get a degree. I wanted to, so during that time now, I started to attend conferences, national conferences for critical care nurses. And I didn't realize that such a thing existed. And I saw these speakers who were so eloquent, and they were so smart, and they presented their material so well. And they had all these strings of initials after their names. And I was Googling, like, what does it mean? Like, so I was like, okay, I want to be that. I want to be there. I want to do that so bad. And again, I was enjoying my work. So, you know, I was working with my patients. I was promoted to a senior staff nurse at that time during my progression through my bachelor's degree program. I was also a preceptor, meaning I was asked to train nurses who are coming in to our department. And I was also put as a charge nurse, so that, you know, every night, and I was working nights at that time, every night there's somebody who's your go-to person. They have a lighter assignment, but they're go-to person. You have questions, you know, there's a person who's in charge. So I kind of liked both roles. And having the bachelor's degree, for me, it wasn't because I wanted to do something with it. It's just because it was a validation of what I was. In the first few years that I was in the United States, I felt that because I spoke with an accent, people thought that I wasn't as smart, maybe, that as the next person. And I really, really wanted to validate what I was and who I was and what I knew. And it seemed to me that having those initials would speak to that also, without me having to open my mouth and talk about who I was.
So you felt like having what you said, these initials, would be proof to the knowledge and skill you had and what you were providing. So I know we spoke about this before. Do you want to kind of talk about what that really means? I mean, I know it's a very valid subject, and it's something that some people might not understand how prevalent it is, and especially in healthcare, and what it means, and how you are, as a person who's teaching nurses, puts that in place for them to prepare them when they come into nursing.
Yeah, so one of the things that we teach even our clinicians, so one of the things is the unconscious bias, right? So we are all born, we all have unconscious bias. This unconscious bias is shaped by our behaviors, our race, our style, our language, life expectations, our, you know, age, values, religious traditions. We're all shaped by those experiences. So if I say I don't have unconscious bias, I would be lying because everybody does. So in a split second, I can just meet somebody and say, this person is this, this, and that, without me even thinking about it. So we teach our clinicians that to be aware of the unconscious bias, and then to kind of just take it back and say, okay, I'm gonna make an effort not to think about this unconscious bias. One of the things that in healthcare is that we associate people of maybe a certain race that they are seeking pain medication. So we heighten awareness to our clinicians that, you know, it's patient-centered care, meaning that we understand and believe the patient what they say without us saying, oh, they must be doing this because of this, this, and that. We have to be as objective as possible and remove the subjectivity away from that. So that's one thing. Another thing is that, you know, maybe physicians, and we have more awareness now that women are less apt to have a heart attack, right? And we don't do many diagnostic testing to make sure that women are also protected, because the signs of heart attack in women can be very atypical. So we teach our clinicians, okay, she may be a woman, but we have to make sure that we look at the whole entire picture. So I teach our new clinicians, our staff, to be aware of this unconscious bias, so that we make sure that the care that we give to our patients are without that thought, okay, she speaks with an accent, so she may not be as intelligent, she may not understand. So we have to take that in consideration.
So those who are in nursing or interested in going into nursing, and you've been doing this for so many years, what do you think their expectations are once they step foot to that first class they're taking in nursing? By the time they graduate, take their, you know, and actually begin nursing, what do you see there that you have to kind of get them to understand the reality of nursing as opposed to classroom learning?
Yeah, so nursing in the United States, and I'm going to speak only for the United States because that's the one that I'm familiar with now, is a lot different. I actually have a friend of mine. She is a teacher, and she wants to become a nurse. So she's a science teacher, so she's very familiar with science, but she did not realize the breadth of knowledge that she has to assimilate, that she has to kind of get a handle on. So for, you know, biology, microbiology, chemistry, organic chemistry, those are the prerequisites before you actually go into the nursing program. So people, you know, and you have to maintain when you are actually in the nursing program, you have to maintain a B average to continue in the program. You can't have a C and continue. So the assumption is that, oh, you know what, it's, you know, nursing, you know, you get out and you can make a fair amount of money, you know, salaries are relatively higher. But they don't realize the amount of knowledge that they have to be responsible for. Anatomy and physiology, I mean, it's pharmacology. Those are very big topics, very big subjects and there are 4 or 5 credit classes sometimes with lab. So the time involvement in getting a degree in nursing is pretty massive. So when I mentor my students, that's what I say, you know, you have to put your time in. One of the things that I've mentored in the past, I don't do as much of when I was a nurse manager, I used to do this, is I also mentor them in leadership, what it means. These are nurses that are already in the program, but are already working, but they're getting a degree in nursing. And I talk to them about what it means to be a leader, a nurse leader in today's very complicated healthcare environment.
So let's say someone begins nursing, they feel very passionate about it, and that's what they know they want to do, and they start studying, and then it becomes too challenging for them in school, but they still want to go into healthcare and somehow do something in that direction, but it's just not right for them in the education part. You know, like you said, there's a lot of knowledge that has to be put forth. And as we know, everybody has different learning styles. So what advice do you have for people who are struggling in school, but it's something that they wanted to do, and not to discourage them that there are other things in healthcare similar to nursing that can still give them that satisfaction?
Yeah, so there's certain things that we could do in healthcare, right? So there's a couple of things. So one is I usually find out what they're struggling with. So let's say they're struggling with math, right? So I'll say, you know what? Right now, these days, everything is automated. So it's not a deal breaker. So if you want to get through your math, get a tutor and you know, work with a tutor, try to get through. They have to take statistics also as a nurse. So that's something that throws everybody off. And I'm like, you know what? Statistics, and then I make the link for them. So, okay, why do you need to know math? Why do you need to know statistics? So we use a lot of statistics for our quality improvement programs that we do in the hospital. So you need to know what, you know, like what your standard deviation is. You know, you need to know, you know, what your P size is for those people, like you're reading an article. So how valid is it? How reliable is it? So I make the connection. Once you make a connection for people, they're like, oh, okay. So now I know that it's valuable to my line of work. So they make the connection a little bit more. So those are the things that I work with them with. One of the things that I had started to work on before COVID hit, unfortunately, is that I was creating a program for our local high school where we wanted to have some of our high school kids come to the hospital and kind of shadow some of the other disciplines. Most people think that if you want to go to healthcare, there's only nursing or being a physician, but there's other disciplines. So you can be a pharmacist, there can be a security officer, you can be in food and nutrition, you can be a chef, you can be a cook. You can be in housekeeping, you can be in maintenance, you can be the plumber, you can be the HVAC system guy. So there's a lot of different things that people could do if they want to be in healthcare, but they don't want or have the aptitude of being in a clinical role. They can do other things and being in a support role. So I was creating this program where high school students, we would put them with like a security officer. You know, you want to be a security officer, maybe you can use that as a stepping stone in the future to go into the police academy, you know, kind of thing. Or you want to start in the food and nutrition and be a server, then maybe be a cook, and maybe you want to be, maybe that will be a stepping stone for you in the future and become, you know, work in the restaurant business. So, you know, we had created this where they would be doing it a little didactic and follow people around. Something similar I had done for our new nurses was, how does the hospital operate, right? So if I'm a nurse on the medical surgical floor, I don't know what the OR nurse has to know. So, and I don't know what the housekeeper has to do. So one thing I had created was a walk a mile in my shoes program, where the nurses would follow for a half an hour, and they go to each department and they follow a patient through from start to finish. So what they did was, so for example, they started with getting a report from the nursing supervisor. So they see what the supervisor is looking for when they ask for a report. Then they went and worked for half an hour with a secretary who is answering phone calls and putting orders through or discharging a patient. Then they went and worked with a housekeeper for half an hour to see how they're cleaning the beds. And they went into the OR, you know, and worked with patients there. And they went to the pharmacy to see how medications are prepared. So they spent 12 hours going from department to department. And that's something that also helped consolidate their experience of what it means to work in a hospital in an and become a member of the interdisciplinary team.
I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people, you know, once they come out of school and they have these expectations of, you know, what they're getting into, and especially nursing, and there's so many different things that are expected of you, but you thought, oh, that's not my job. I don't, you know, I don't have to do that, but you do. and doing the shadowing is I think a very key thing. And also saying, oh, maybe this isn't really what I want to do. So besides your nursing, you know, working in the hospital, and you say you do, you lecture and you mentor and you teach. You also, what else do you do besides that? I know you have all these initials, and I ended up explaining the, you know, the doctorate of nursing practice. What are all the initials and qualifications?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm an RN, so I'm a registered nurse, right? So that's one of them. I have CCRN, which is the critical care registered nurse, which is a national certification given to the American Association of Critical Care Nurses. It's a certification exam to show that you are expert in critical care. You have to take you either have to submit credit hours every 3 years to maintain it, or, you know, take the test. So I have been a member, I have been certified for more than 20 years. After my CCRN, then I got my bachelor's degree. So it's a bachelor's in nursing science, which is BSN. I think they're all behind me also for my degrees. Then after that, I kind of fell into a leadership role instead of my clinical role, because I started covering a manager, and I worked as a manager. So then I said, okay, I like leadership. So I got my master's in healthcare administration from Ashford University. And then during that time, I applied for national certification for the nursing executive advanced. I took the advanced level certification. So I'm an NEA-BC, which is nursing executive advanced board certified. And then my last thing that I have is my doctorate of nursing practice. It's not a medical doctor, because people think that it's, you know, when you say Dr. Volpe, they think it's a medical degree. It's not a medical degree. It's just a degree. It's a terminal degree in nursing that shows a level of expertise in the nursing practice world.
And that allows you to teach.
Yes, most colleges require their professors to hold a doctorate degree. Yes, yeah. So I teach now. I am a part-time adjunct professor at Capella University, where it's where I got my degree in nursing, my nursing practice. Actually, last year, it's a cute little story. Last year, when I attended my graduation, which is just before COVID, I met one of the professors. She was the chair of the nursing division. And I was telling her my story of how I came to the United States, and I wanted to get my degree. This is the culmination of my 30 years plus of studying. And she goes, oh my gosh, she said, we need somebody like you on our faculty. And I said, I'd be happy to teach. I love teaching. I love talking about what I do. I'm very passionate about nursing. I'm passionate about healthcare. And she goes, we need to get you hired. She said, but we only have a certain amount of people that we can hire from, depending on from our graduate pool. So it was, I was on vacation with my graduation ceremony, and then I came back to the States. I left for the States, New York, and of course COVID started, and I never looked back. It was 4 months later. I was like, oh my, it was working really, we were working all kinds of hours. And then I said, I never contacted her. I lost her contact information. And finally, I found her. I found the person I had talked to through going to the school and through multiple layers, because they wouldn't release her information. And when they gave her my name, she told me that she was looking for me. She had lost my information as well. And she was looking to try to find me. And before I know it, they had offered me a position, and I started. So I taught last semester, and I'm teaching this semester as well.
So with all the initials you now have after your name, do you feel like you have achieved the proof that you've always felt that you needed to prove, not only to yourself, but to the doubters, because you're an immigrant. And what is the most rewarding that you've had over this lengthy time in the healthcare and adding these initials?
So obviously when I went for my graduation from my doctorate, I was in tears. I was literally crying. I was up on the stage and I'm getting emotional when I think about it. I was like, oh my gosh, gee, you know, I got what I had planned to do like many years ago. I'm comfortable in my skin now. I'm a take it or leave it person. I'm a lot older, so I don't care what people say or think anymore. This is who I am. And, you know, if I don't let people occupy space in my brain too much. So meaning that you don't like who I am or what I am about, then that's on you. It's not on me. It's the way it is. I don't seek to impress people. I'm just about what I am, and I'm comfortable in what I'm doing. I love what I do. I still encounter the unconscious bias? Without a doubt, yes, I do. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure I am again comfortable and happy in what I am, and knowing that I have work that I do that's worthwhile. I've had many moments where you know, I've had patients look at me and say, you've made a difference in my life when I was caring for them. I've had staff say that, you know, I'm in this position because of you. I have people who have said that they've improved because of my influence. I'm not any more than other people in my role. My role is to mentor other people. When people continue to progress out and do other things, I'm happy for them, because I'm happy that we're improving healthcare one person at a time.
Knowing you when we speak about healthcare, I find that to be absolutely true. You're completely genuine about it. You're completely passionate about it. And that's also why I was so happy to have you on this show, is to, you know, have you speak about this passion. And hopefully someone who does watch will be influenced and know that it can happen. And there's various ways to make it happen. Even if they're not in, you know, the academic side, they can always find something that will bring them in the healthcare setting. And every role is very important. Like you said, you know, it doesn't have to be a clinician. It could just be the security guard, the person serving the food. That's all part of patient care. And I admire you, and I'm so glad you're here. So I wanted to do a fun fact about when I asked you to come on the show and, you know, send me some photos, and you sent the photo of these silver Maltese crosses, right?
Yes.
And at first I was like, are they earrings? What? And you came with the story that it was kind of a rite of passage, where, if you want to explain, and I'll put the screenshot up of it.
I have them also.
Yes. So go ahead. Talk.
Okay.
Maltese cross.
So the Maltese cross. Okay. So those are the Maltese cross, when I have them in my hand as well. So these are the buckles, right? So when we graduated at that time, more than 30 years ago, the first thing that we did with our paycheck, which was, I think at that time was about 50 Maltese pounds, we went to Valletta and ordered our buckle. So there was a particular place in Valletta where we went to order our buckles. They were solid silver. And then at the back, we engraved them with our first and the last names on each one so that they don't get separated. Obviously, we had a place here where we got the belt, and they used to call us the nurses of the buckle, and talbokla, they used to call us, because that means that we are on RN. The LPNs had like a regular green buckle. We had the blue belt and this particular buckle, and that's one of pictures of me wearing that buckle. With a blue dress. At the time, we used to wear a blue dress, black pantyhose, and black low-heeled shoes. which when I tell people in nursing here, they're like, what, wearing a dress to work? And I'm like, yeah, that's what we used to do. So anyway, and then I was talking to Carmen, and she said, what about the guys, what they wear? And I said, well, they had a lab coat. And again, she found it very interesting, which at the time I didn't make the connection. I was so used to that. And she goes, that's interesting. The guys had a lab coat and the girls, the women had to wear a dress with a buckle and a hat. So that's the little fun fact for the buckle.
The badge of honor there.
The badge of honor. We couldn't wait to wear that. It was like the first thing that you did. You went and, cashed your paycheck and got that buckle.
Did they ever explain how that tradition started with this buckle for the female nurses?
I think it's because they wanted, I don't know. It's a supposition on my part. It's, I don't know. I know in England, they always had dresses also that women wear, female nurses. So I guess it's because you're holding your dress. I don't know. I couldn't even venture a guess.
Well, it's a fun fact and it's worth thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So besides healthcare, you're quite an adventurer, right?
Yes.
On top of all the initials after your name, a lot of adventures on your list. And just to kind of sum it up, what was your first adventure that you had and that caught you to continue your adventures?
Oh my God. I couldn't pick on one single thing because I've done so many and they're also very interesting. I've done
maybe the first one. Pick the first one.
So the first one, I think one thing that I really is different is ice fishing. So one thing is you go out on a lake and you're sitting there for 12 hours and you're cooking right on the ice. So you put the so first of all, it's very cold, obviously, because the ice has to be pretty you have to have at least, I think, 3 inches. That has to be that thick. And then you drill holes, and then you have what's called tip-ups. So it's a cross, and they have a flag. And when the fish bites, the flag goes up, and you run across the ice, and you get the fish. You can take it out, and you get the fish out. So one of the things that you do is you just have a fire on the ice. The fire doesn't go through the ice because it melts underneath, so there's nothing. I mean, when it's wet, it doesn't go all the way down, and you just cook the fish right there and there. And you bring what they're called toys. Some people bring dirt bikes, which has studs on the wheels so they can grip the ice, and they ride motorcycles on the ice. They can have a quad or a snowmobile on the ice, and you just do that so that you move around, or ice skate. So I think that was one of the things that I really enjoyed doing. It's something that's different.
Very different. So now that we were talking about nursing and this quick little thing about adventures and things like that, do you have anything next on your agenda? I mean, I don't know how you do it all, but you always have something coming up, something that you want to, achieve or learn. Because I know as a learner, it never stops. And it's always like, it's this hunger, that can never be, satiated by anything. It's like constant. Is there something now that's on your mind that you need to further?
So I just started teaching in the college, right? I've mentored people in the hospital. I've started to teach. The first semester I taught evidence-based practice in nursing. So how to get a journal, how to get a piece of information and make sure it's evidence-based, that it's timely, that it's relevant to their practice, that it's peer-reviewed. So I taught that, and I enjoyed it because I also learned a lot from that myself. And now this semester I'm teaching nursing informatics, how technology works with healthcare. Again, very interesting. So one of the things is that I want to continue to grow in my role as an educator. I think I can go farther in that. I'm toying with the idea of getting either an MBA if I, because I do like, my role is very diverse that there's so many business skills that you have to maintain a role in the role that I hold right now. Or also get a PhD in education. So those are things that I'm considering. I don't know yet. It's just right now, I'm just taking the break because my plate is full and overflowing right now.
So you actually slowed down. For now.
For now, yeah, for now, it's, especially in the environment that we are right now, everything is in a state of flux. So yeah, so for now, I'm gonna stay put.
So let's go to the ending questions. What does it mean to be Maltese and to be Maltese in America?
So I love being Maltese. My friends say, whenever I say I'm from Malta, they say, okay, shots, because I'm always saying I'm Maltese. I used to say I'm from Europe because when I said I'm from Malta, people are like, what, where, what? So now I'm the kind of in your face, I'm too old to worry about what people are thinking. So I say, I'm from Malta. And they're like, okay, so where is that? And I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know what that is? Come on, So I try to educate people on Malta and how, we have, a unique language. It's only Maltese people speak Maltese only. It's a unique language. It's one of its kind, that it's Semitic in origin, but written with Latin script, that anthropologists the world over study it because it's so very unique. I talk about how rich the Maltese language is when you use one word versus the English language will use 2 or 3 words to explain a word, especially in the boating business. And Carmen, you know that from your father also. There's so many different words for parts of of a boat, but they're all in Maltese. And you can tell how rich that language is. I talk about the incredible history, the incredible structures that we have. And people are like, oh my gosh, like we didn't realize. And so I heighten awareness about that we're in Europe, that we're kind of world leaders, that it was the hub of commerce, that it was strategically placed. My front yard has an American flag and a Maltese flag. And I fly them both very proudly because I'm very proud of both my citizenship in both countries. So it means I identify very closely to being Maltese, and I'm so proud of being a citizen of one of the smallest countries in the world, but one of the most influential, I think, over past history.
Love it. I mean, I feel the same, being born here and being Maltese parents and having to explain, where Malta is or what is it. And, thankfully for, the media, people know what kind of now know where Malta is. But again, being knowledgeable about being Maltese and what is Malta, and imparting that into, our friends and family and children and so forth, and instilling that value. And as being a member of the Maltese Center, what does that presence of the Maltese Center of New York mean to you? I know you're not so near, but it is important to you to know that we have a Maltese Center. And do you want to explain that?
It's very, very important. I wish I was closer. I would be there every Sunday eating pasitzi there. So yeah, I would be there. I love the activities that the Maltese Center puts out. Last year we enjoyed a carnival. I mean, we had a great time. We were looking forward to Leila Maltia also to make the trip and be there with everybody. It's good to reconnect with our Maltese roots, hear people speaking Maltese. It's just very important for me and important for all of us to connect. I think it is critical that we support it in any way we can, either with functions such as these. Carmen, I think you've did an enormous amount of work to put these together. This is a lot of work. It looks seamless just because you put in the work ahead of time. So I wanted to put a plug in for you doing this to bring some more, you know, awareness of what the Maltese community is all about, but also to support the Maltese community in other ways. Financial is always good to have, you know, it's always good to send in money. I mean, it's a club, and it's our club. It's our way of continuing to support these efforts such as these to continue to pay the rent. You know, we're not, you know, the Maltese Club doesn't make any other money except from dues and being members. So I know there's a lot of people working in that aspect, and it's what we pass on to our future generation. It would be very, very sad if the Maltese Club doesn't continue on for our children and their children, and to continue these traditions that this is what shapes us. This is what makes us us. This is what makes us different than the Italians or British or Americans. This is what makes us us. And we should be very proud to be part of such a club, and to continue to help out as much as we can in any way we can.
Oh, thank you so much, Anita. That really means a lot to me and to the Maltese Center. And everyone out there, I did not ask her to, you know, formulate.
No.
Thank you so much, Anita. You are the last guest on MALTIN TAGHNA. This was our first series, and it came out of COVID, and how I thought, how do I keep the Maltese community and the Maltese Center and, you know, everyone who loves Malta connected. And in hopes of the reopening back in November, I thought I would be doing this out of the Maltese Center with a live audience and the guest either on Zoom or at the center. And then we had our second shutdown, and I had to kind of reinvent this and do this from home and reformulate this initiative. And I was so humbled by everyone who I asked to come on said yes. And it's been a great journey, this first program series with MALTIN TAGHNA, and spotlighting the wonderful Maltese people on the show and their passions, and giving them the spotlight that they do deserve. And letting people in our Maltese community know the different roles that Maltese people have here and in Malta and around the world. And we're everywhere, even though we are from a small island. We have our presence in many, many different roles. And I think it's inspiring for our young generation to see this and see where Maltese presence exists. So with that, I want to thank again, Anita, for being here and sharing your knowledge and your continued success and inspiring the nurses and people in healthcare who serve the public and the patients. And I want to say I'll be back in November, hopefully, and having another variety of guests. This season, we had people from government to artists, authors, and leaders. And I want to thank everyone again, and enjoy this beautiful spring day and the rest of the seasons. Thank you, Anita.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.